Welcome to the Darshan Talks podcast. I'm your host, Darshan Kulkarni. As some of you may know, I'm an attorney. I advise companies with FDA regulated products. So if you have an interest in or you work with FDA regulated companies or their products, this is the podcast for you. So leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. Our guest today is Senior VP at Volpe Koenig. His work extends to numerous technological areas, including pharmaceuticals, biotech, genetics, organic chemistry, new chemical entities, small molecules, macromolecules, nucleic acids, cancer therapies, water treatment, petroleum technologies, carbon sequestration, food technologies, nutraceuticals, batteries, medical devices, and mechanical devices. He works with a diverse group of clients. It's just a little bit, right? You haven't done much, obviously. He works with a diverse group of clients ranging from individual inventors to universities and companies of all sizes. And you provide advice on all matters relating to the law of inventions, from trade secrets to patents. Your guest today is Doug Bucklin. Welcome, Doug Bucklin.
Thank you, Darshan. I'm happy to be here. It's fun.
Is it Dr. Bucklin?
My mom called me that when I got my PhD, and a few friends still call me that as a kind of a joke. But Doug's good.
Doug's good. Okay. So, Doug, what we want to talk about today is a conversation around what it takes to protect your intellectual property. And I thought of the expert I know, which is you, to talk about that. If I was a new general counsel and I'm coming on and I'm going, you know what do I need to know about patents? Could you walk me through what getting a patent is like?
The basics that I see.
Okay.
That inventor or company comes to me and gives me an invention disclosure.
Okay.
I take that invention disclosure. I interview the client contact, hopefully the inventor.
Yeah.
To find out more about the invention so I understand it. And then we draft an application and we file. So what do I need in that disclosure? I need to know what you have done and how it is different from what other people have done. So you have a new chemical entity that you think might be a great drug. Great. Give me the structure. Tell me how it's different than anything that existed in this world before, and tell me what it's good for. Then we can go about modeling the application. Hopefully you have some data that tells me it actually works as advertised, and we can put that in the application to enable the invention. So part of the patent law is that you don't get an exclusive right just because you ask for it. You have to give some. What you give is the knowledge of how to make and use the claimed invention without undue experimentation. You also describe it completely so everybody knows exactly what it is. If you don't do those things, you don't get the exclusive right. So in essence, I flippantly say you have to give people enough information so that they can rip you off. If you don't do that, you can't get the patent. But the flip side to it is if you get the patent, you can keep them from ripping you off for 20 years. You get the exclusive right to that invention. But at the expiration of the patent, all that information you've given everybody gets donated to the public domain. It's the quid pro quo of the patent system.
So I have so many questions on that. Let's start with some of the basic questions. You talk about the disclosure form. You talk about what have you done and how is it different. So does that mean that I now have to take on the job of comparing it to other patent applications? How do I even start with that?
That's a great question. You don't have a duty to search the world to prove to the patent office that no one else has done it before. You only have the duty to believe that you are the first one to have done it. Okay. So you're the expert in the art. You have invented this thing. whether it's a new chemical entity, a new synthetic DNA, whatever it is, you're the expert. You have a good feeling whether or not someone else has done it. You're probably pretty sure that you're the first because you're coming to me. You're not going to spend money on an outside lawyer unless you're sure that you're the first. So you just have to believe that you are the first. Then once the application is filed, the patent office searches it and will give you a report on the patent office's conclusion about whether or not someone else has done it before. Now, you can search it too. We often use prior art search firms and work with clients to, before filing, gauge whether it's worth the money to go forward with an invention. So instead of a full patent application, we prepare a short summary, which we can give to an expert prior art searcher. Usually these people are ex-patent examiners. They work with us in confidence, so we can talk to them without disclosing the invention to the outside world. They search, they give us results, and then the client can filter through them, or we can filter through them with the client to kind of give them a rough gauge on whether it's worthwhile going forward.
What is the advantage of not using a search firm? It sounds like
it's cheaper.
But does that willful ignorance also allow me to basically enter the market and go, I have a patent pending, knowing that the patent will take forever to be examined, and therefore I have this quasi period when it may issue?
Well, that's a great question too, because when do patent rights mature? You do not get the right to exclude people from your invention until the patent issues.
Sure.
So that entire period from the time you've filed the patent application all the way up to when it issues, you have no patent rights.
Agreed.
Someone could go out and do exactly what you're going to claim, and they're not an infringer. Now, there's a caveat. The application will publish at a certain point, and the claim that you're pursuing will be published. Claims change during the course of arguing with the patent office, but say one issues in the patent later on that's substantially the same as the one that published. There's a provision that you can get a reasonable royalty for things a competitor did that infringed that claim if they had notice of that claim when it published. So there is a limited right of getting that reasonable royalty, but you have a risk during that application phase that other people are going to learn about it and start scaling up and getting ready to compete with you. The counterpoint to that is they see that you're trying to get a patent application, so they might not want to invest that time, energy, money, only to be excluded later on. So it's kind of a give and take. How big of a threat are you? How important is an invention? A lot of things go into play there. So is it worth it to have that search? I think for the most part, people decide not to go forward with a prior art search before they file because they know that the patent office is going to do that. That's what the patent office here or any other country, that's what they do. So they rely on the patent office to do it.
Okay.
I think some companies will go forward with the patent search though because they have many things going on, and it's a quicker way to gauge whether or not it's worthwhile pushing one forward or the other.
But let me ask you this question. Is there, in your experience as an IP attorney, or more specifically a patent attorney, a value is there scare value in filing the application, knowing that there's a 70% chance it won't issue or 80% chance it won't issue? The idea being that no one else wants to enter that because you're saying that there's a patent pending, and you can't exclude anyone, but people know you're spending the money doing it, So people don't want to get in and try to develop that, therefore creating a clearer pathway for you.
I think your scare factor is only going to work if your competitor is small. If your competitor is a huge mega corporation and they see that you know, maybe they do a search of what your public patent application says in it, and they come to a conclusion that they'll never get a patent on that.
Sure.
So they might think, well, let's just go forward. Well, their risk is small compared to their overall structure. So the scare factor is not high. The scare factor to from startup to startup, or from mid-size to startup, yeah, there's probably a substantial scare factor there. You could devote an entire startup budget to following a line of development, and
right,
only to be shut out at the end. So yes and no.
It
depends who you're trying to scare.
Right. So let's take that next phase of it, which is you're doing the patent search. What value for a larger? So what I'm hearing you say is that the big advantage or the big value of a patent search is in the fact that it tells you what you could expect. Are you spending good money after bad? Are there any other value? Is there any other value to it that people should consider? If I'm a general counsel and I'm going to have a budget, is this money I should spend?
For the general counsel, I'd say file the application and get your search from the patent office.
Interesting.
For a startup, I'd say get the search so you have something to package for a potential investor.
I'm trying to put, this is not legal advice, so that
good. Thanks. It's not. These are just kind of ballpark.
Yeah. Which is a really interesting factor to consider. If you are looking at getting valuations in your company, is there value in just filing applications knowing that they might not ever issue, but it adds value? And unless an investor decides to start looking at all your patents and determine the likelihood of issuance, it sounds like it would raise the value of your company just to file.
That would depend on the savviness of your investor. Some investors actually come to patent attorneys to say, can you take a look at this application? I'm thinking about investing in this company. Can you know what that's about? So for that investor, just a number of patent applications pending, because they're going to do their due diligence and figure it out.
And that might affect your ability to actually, like, you might lose trust with the inventor at that point.
Yeah, and these are all really tagging this is not legal advice. These are strategic considerations and business decisions. If a patent thicket is what you're going for, that's what will generate value. Lots of filings are probably great. If it's in the pharmaceutical space, often it's not a thicket that you're looking for. It's a protection for the compound that has activity. So
Doug,
one patent can.
What is a patent thicket?
So I think the best example is in electronics. One device, small, simple consumer electronic device, can be subject to 1,000 different patents for all the different processes and gizmos inside of it. And all of them are there through standards meetings or licenses so that they can all be coordinated to be in that package. But then the companies all contributing to products or having their own products out there, they have stacks of patents that are in and outside of the standards, and they'll have meetings, and maybe one will have a stack of patents that's 400 high, and the other will have a stack of patents that's 450 high, and they'll just shuffle them back and forth saying, well, I've got this one that might be of concern to you, and I've got that one that might be concerned to you, until they get tired of it. So the thicket of all these patents forms a barrier that the other side just wants to get around by taking the license or just forgetting the project altogether.
So I'm sorry. I appreciate you explaining thickets. You were talking about the use of searching in the pharmaceutical industry. How do you normally see that play out?
In the pharmaceutical industry, I'm not aware of people actually using a patent thicket. In the pharmaceutical, life science, chemistry space, people usually use their patents to protect the product that they actually want to work, and they're not putting up the thickets.
Okay.
Um,
Why?
And that shows in the filing numbers. Pharmaceutical companies file hundreds of patent applications, where major electronics corporations file thousands. So the business models are different.
What about the business model is makes pharmaceutical companies more judicious about which patents to file for?
But they are looking at, from the lab work or from the acquisition work of the companies that they're bringing in, what is the active product that likely will end up being an approved pharmaceutical. Often it's unknown. There's hundreds or thousands of compounds that might end up being the active that's important, but it's usually a pretty focused analysis. They're not looking to. Sorry about that. We've got a call coming in. They're not looking to necessarily throw up barriers across all of the, say, disease X space. They're looking to put up barriers for this compound that works.
Interesting. So you think that's more a PR thought process as opposed to an IP thought process? Public relations.
I think the value of a pharmaceutical patent, I think, changes. So the thicket works because your patents and your applications have immediate value upon issue.
Right.
Pharmaceutical patent has value 10 years on in its life cycle.
Right.
And that 10 years on is when you've narrowed it down to the compound that works. And so if I'm going to do a thicket and I've got this application that has 1,000 compounds in it, and this application has 1,000 compounds in it, I think it becomes kind of unmanageable. I think it, and also you're looking for that value kind of as a broad funnel going down product, rather than here's the product, let me throw up 50 things around it.
Which, I mean, I'm sort of thinking, when I was corporate counsel at a generic company, we'd look at the Orange Book and try to compare that to, well, what do we need to do to be able to enter the market, comparing that to the patents that they've identified in the Orange Book. My question for you is, I've always wondered, why aren't there 50? That would have made our lives really, really difficult and really, really expensive. Why not go down that?
Orange Book is asking you to list patents that have claims that read directly on the product that's being approved through a label. So the company might have patents that read on the edges.
Yeah.
But the claims that don't actually overlap in scope with the active product aren't proper to be listed on the Orange Book.
Explain that part to me. Aren't proper to be listed in the Orange Book. What does proper according to whom?
So the statute is asking you to list patents with claims that read on the active.
Right.
So if I have a claim that doesn't read on the active because it directs the scope of the claim a little to the left,
yeah,
then that patent is not one that can be used to exclude someone from that active pharmaceutical ingredient. So it shouldn't be on the Orange Book.
But that sounds like a legal determination of what reads to the left versus being on point.
Well, that's part of the dance at generic entry. The generic manufacturer is going to claim that the thing they want to make, use, and sell doesn't infringe any of the patents on the Orange Book.
Right.
So I guess to your point, there may be some strategy to putting some fences up on the Orange Book. I think I just don't see the thicket being as useful in the chemical space as it is in the electrical space.
Interesting. It's a what I'm always trying to do is think about what I can learn from another industry and see why it doesn't work here, why it does. On one hand, I kind of like the thought process behind it. On the other hand, I go, well, that's going to raise the cost of drugs and limit the ability of generic companies to come in and really affect the price of drugs. So it's an interesting concept to me. I think, and again, I'd love for you to comment on this. I also think that pharmaceutical companies think, as you said, in decades. Well, electronic companies are thinking in years. So in that time, a CEO will have turned over, and that individual CEO's perspective on is it worth spending on thousands of patent applications that you may or may not be able to use may not be worth it if you're talking about large enough pharma in the future. So it's an interesting concept to me to think through. So thank you for that. You also talked about this idea of enabling, and you talked about how the patent application. You have a little buzzing coming in there.
Yeah, so I think enablement is one of the bigger. Are you raising a technical point? Are we having problems?
No, let me finish the question. I guess I was thinking through. You talk about the idea of enablement, and you said you have to give enough information that someone else can rip you off. Is how you phrased it. I guess my question for you is how when we used to discuss how to do the patent disclosures and what we need to tell our patent attorney to make things happen, we talk about, well, can we mix this with a trade secret so that we're explaining a whole portion of this, but there's a quote unquote secret sauce that we need on the side that we don't need to include in this portion. Have you seen that happen? Is that unusual or is that very normal? Okay, so how does that play out?
First, tell your attorney everything. Don't. You're going to give you the advice you need in order to achieve it. If there's technique you don't want to disclose to the public because it's the secret sauce that you want to keep secret, well, then we're going to have to work around it. Bedrock principle of patents is that you can't keep something trade secret and patent it.
Right.
You have to teach the public what the invention is and how to make and use it without undue experimentation. That's it. If you hold back a little bit, and that little bit is necessary to make it work, to be able to make and use it, then someone might just invalidate your claim later, or the examiner might not ever let you get it. So the enablement is an important piece, and a question a lot. Can we hold a little back? Maybe, but we're going to have to direct the claims to something else, something that you can fully disclose without holding back. For the portion you want to hold back on, we're going to have to leave that section of invention out of the patent. So tell your lawyers everything. There's no reason to hold back. They're there to advise you. We're not trying to play games. It's not some movie where we're trying to sneak one past people.
Yeah.
There's a set of laws and facts, and they're how the patent system is structured.
Right.
We're experts in it. We can figure out how to achieve your goals, but we need to know what the goal is and what the facts are to figure that out. Maybe you can achieve your goals given the law and the facts. And that's good to know too.
Absolutely. Now, let me tell you another thing that I've had to deal with, and I'd be curious how when I was general counsel, these are the issues that I've had to deal with. So I appreciate you sort of clarifying things. Another big question that I'd always get is the patent lawyer would write out this really complex patent, then send it to me going, yeah, is this right? Which totally makes sense from the patent attorney's perspective. And I'm looking at this document going, I literally cannot, I'm reading the 7 claims and going, they read identical to me. And the patent attorney is going, no, there's a very subtle difference between 1A and 1C. And I'm going, I'm literally doing a word by word search to see the difference. I don't get it. Is this more a CYA from the patent attorney's perspective, or do people really understand the difference? And I think of myself as relatively smart, and I'm going, I have no idea what's going on here. So how do you deal with people like that?
There's a high level of patentees. It's a foreign language,
Right.
and you have to learn it to understand patents. That being said, your patent application should be intelligible to the non-patent attorney. The inventor is usually the one that should be down in the weeds thinking about the nitty-gritty. The general counsel should be at a higher level. Maybe there's a patent counsel that's an intermediary between those. That would be great. But for those complicated technical questions, that should be pushed down to the inventor. And if the claims are so finessed that it's difficult to tell what the difference between 1 and 10 is,
right?
Maybe there is a good reason for that, and it's worth a call to your patent attorney to get that, because I feel for you. Patents sometimes read very poorly. And there is just 1 or 2 words that are different between claims 1 and 10, and they make a big difference.
Right.
So call them, ask them, why are you making me do this? That 10-minute call will be worth your time. Keep it to 10 minutes though, because they'll charge you.
Yeah, let's address that question of 10 minutes. If you were going to advise a new general counsel on how to save money on getting their patents and their IP protections in, what do you recommend? Obviously, they'll eventually grow into being able to do this right and by the book, but obviously startups have limitations and costs. So what do you recommend?
Very clear invention disclosures, and an opportunity for the patent attorney to talk with the inventors. You can cap the time, say a half hour, so that the patent attorney can get a good grounding on what the invention is. There's a lot of wasted time with patent attorneys having to search through complicated documents from the inventors, because inventors have their own foreign language,
right,
technical ease.
Yeah.
So you have to filter through that to figure out what is it they're trying to tell me the invention is. And then you write something down and you send it back to them. That process going back and forth can be terribly efficient. So give your inventors and your patent attorney time to talk to each other so that the inventors can say, the invention is X. And then it's very much more straightforward for the patent attorney then to draft something that captures that and focus on those materials that were given to them to say this is all just extra stuff. I'm going to leave that out and ask them if it's okay I left that out because this is what I think the invention is. without that talk, there's an impulse to, I think, a fear by a lot of patent attorneys that if I leave something out that they've given me, that will turn out to be the important thing. And so everything goes in. And that ramps up the time and the complexity and the horribleness of the document that's created. So a quality invention disclosure that focused on really a good, concise statement of what the invention is, followed by a discussion between the patent attorney and the inventors.
Doug, that was great advice. So let me sort of recap what we discussed during this podcast. We talked a little bit about the life cycle of a patent. We talked about the importance of disclosures. We talked about how a inventor needs to believe that you're the first doing something. We talked about the discussion around exclusion by scaring people about the presence of a patent. We talked about the value of a patent search. We talked about the implication of trade secrets and can they be combined with patents. We talked about the concept of patent thicketing. And I think that covers most of them. Did I miss anything?
That's a lot. We went through more than I realized.
So for those of you who missed it, Doug can be reached on LinkedIn. Doug, is there any other place you recommend people reach you?
You can look at the firm website. I think you can see my name. I'm at Volpe Koenig. You can look at that website. You can track down me or any of the professionals there. So LinkedIn, website, Volpe Koenig. That'd be great.
Okay, awesome. And if you like this podcast, please leave a comment and subscribe. You can find me at Darshan Talks on Twitter or go to our website at darshantalks.com. Thanks again for being on here, Doug. Love to have you on again.
Thank you. Absolutely. I'd look forward to it.